Just like real estate. You sell a house, that's it.
Yeah.
And it's hard to budget as a business. It's hard to prep. It's hard to plan as a small business when you don't have any recurring revenue. And pest control fixes that, right? You're on a subscription base. It's the cheapest bill you'll ever have, $30, $40 a month for a particular service. They always need it. It never goes away. Roaches don't care what the S&P 500 are doing. So it just kind of it stays there, right? The last thing the wife is going to tell you is, cut the pest control when they see a roach on the ceiling. So
Welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast. Today, I have one of the most vital services in the home buying process. My guest is one of the most respected home inspectors in Northeast Florida. Originally on episode 9 back in June of 2021, his business has continued to grow, adding another truck this month. I saw on social media there. He's also added pest control, which we're going to dig in and why that's so important here in Florida. These services are vital to buying a home, especially when buying in Florida. We are a little different for you, anyone moving from out of state, or if you're a new real estate agent, you're not fully informed on how home inspections now and insurance is important. And obviously you got to have a pest control service coming on, termite bond, that kind of thing. We're going to talk about that. Today's show is going to be focused on these services, what is important. Hopefully my guest will have some great stories, which I know he does. Let's welcome the owner of Gray Home Inspections, Gray Pest Control, Austin Gray, to the show.
Hey. Thanks, Tracy. Happy to be here.
Appreciate you coming on. It's been 2.5 years has gone by quick. Didn't have video the last time, so hopefully we'll get some good video clips for you here for the social media when it comes out. But you've continued to grow, and I know if anyone goes back to the original episode, we talked about your hiring practices and how important it is to hire the right people. And I've known you've continued to surround yourself. Of course, now you're growing, so it's probably a little more difficult in bringing some people on, but making sure they're doing it the Gray way, right? If we want to say it that way. Yeah. Tell us a little bit, just in the last 2.5 years, tell us a little bit, your expansion of the home inspection. I'm assuming you got some more crews out there for that. And then adding the pest control. Why did you see that as a need or an opportunity for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like I'm an OG, man. I'm number 9. Is that what it was?
I think it was number 9. It was June. I counted, this morning on the block. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. So
this is 190.
Oh,
XO
wow.
190.
All right. Love it. So since 2021, we've grown exponentially. We're about 100% larger than what we are. So about double the size since 2021. Mm-hmm. So far this year, we've done about 1,500 inspections on the year so far. And that includes insurance inspections, WDO inspections, and full home inspections. And then actually towards the end of 2021, we started the pest control company, got everything rolling, and then in the beginning part of 2022, we were really starting to roll it out. The pest control company is interesting, and why we kind of started the pest control company is one of the most asked questions that we had from the inspection side was, who's your pest guy? Who's your AC guy? And, it was one of those two ways, which ways are we going to go? And at the time, we were already doing some pest control work, inspections, and thought it would be a great opportunity to have another revenue stream, and that was pest control. Pest control is vital in Florida, as you know, like you were just saying, termites, bugs, roaches, squirrels. I know you just said you had a story in your house.
We had some rats, some whatever they call those rats.
Mosquitoes. My wife was just telling me I haven't sprayed for mosquitoes in my house in a couple months, and she's, hey, we're slapping each other all over the place. Can we go ahead and get this fixed? So yeah, there's a pressing need for pest control, and it creates stability within our company and our organization, and also provides other opportunities. We just had one of our newest techs that joined the pest control side who came from the inspection side. He expressed some interest in there, and we're like, hey, we have a perfect move. We can get you over here to do pest control work, and now he loves it. So just creates more opportunities from within our company, and more stability from a business perspective.
I'm going to have you grab that mic and just pull it to you about a foot away. Perfect. What is it, obviously, being in the real estate industry, home inspection, you're working with a real estate agent, you're working with that buyer for that one time, but now pest control is more of, you want to set up more of a subscription thing, right? You're setting up, come in do your regular inspections, if they're getting a termite bond, whatever, that type of thing. It's a little bit different market, or basically who you're marketing to, right?
Yeah, we're marketing to any and everyone, right? If you're a human being and you don't like bugs, we're your people. And this is more of a business podcast,
right.
And from a business perspective on home inspections, it's one and done. Just like real estate, you sell a house, that's it.
Yeah.
And it's hard to budget as a business. It's hard to prep. It's hard to plan as a small business when you don't have any recurring revenue. And pest control fixes that, right? You're on a subscription base. It's the cheapest bill you'll ever have, $30, $40 a month for a particular service. They always need it. It never goes away. Roaches don't care what the S&P 500 are doing, so it just kind of it stays there, right? The last thing the wife is going to tell you is, cut the pest control when they see a roach on the ceiling. So it creates stability, and stability was one of the main reasons, obviously, why we went towards pest control. The way that it works, and every home inspection that we do, our customers will receive a free, or depending on the size of the home, it's either free or $49 for initial startup pest control service, which is normally about $200 if you go pick up the phone and call anybody else to get that initial service. And then they get a discounted termite bond on that starting at $99. So you typically will save about $500 or $600 on your startup. And again, as a business podcast, I'll kind of talk, as a business, how are we able to do that and why does it make sense? Pest control is a very competitive market. And for us, we don't have to pay to get those leads, right? So the big guys, Orkin, Terminix, whatever, they're paying on average anywhere from $300 to $500 per customer. That's their acquisition cost.
Wow.
So it's very high. And so we're able to come in as a person that they were a customer of ours. So it's already kind of a warm lead anyways. They're usually pretty happy with us. So we're able to save them that money on the upfront without having to pay that acquisition cost.
$300 to $500 acquisition. That's pretty high.
It's heavy.
That's high. I mean, I remember when the cell phone business, me and my wife were in the late 90s, I think at one time it was $260 Alltel figured was their acquisition cost. And, well, we know where our cell phone bills are today, right? It's like you got to have one. Everyone in the family's got to have one. And now just to acquire a home. I mean, yeah, you're in the hole for the first 6 months of the service, right? I mean, for most part. I always think pest control, and I always want to put the lawn, but we want to separate that because you're not doing the lawn. We talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
You're focused on the house, the different services under the pest control. Rodents, I know if I saw that on your website. Obviously, mosquitoes, the other bugs like roaches, type of thing. What else are we doing?
Yeah, so we cover every pest control need except for lawns, right? Mm-hmm. So that's not bugs. So if you have a bug issue or an animal issue, we can help with that. So rodent exclusion work, so sealing up any openings inside your house, crawl space areas, setting up bait boxes on the outside of the house if you have an ongoing rat or squirrel issue that's going on. Mm-hmm. Mosquitoes, so if you're outside stopping yourself or you're worried about ticks, which we actually have some ticks in the area right now. One of my kids came in the house about a month ago and had a tick on their arm. And we actually sent that off to Quest Diagnostics to get it tested, and
What do they do for the ticks? Is it just a spray or what's the...
Yeah, so we can do a spray, mosquito fogging. And like I was telling earlier before we got on, that I hadn't sprayed my own lawn in a couple months for mosquitoes. And there are certain IGRs that are in, like a chemical that's in the product that we use for mosquitoes. And it'll also kill off ticks as well.
Interesting.
But yeah, we'll cover all those.
Well, there definitely are areas. I mean, St. Johns County is, they got to bring in fill anytime they build a house or build anything here. St. Johns County is borderline swamp. Mosquitoes are there. I know just from family, Palencia is an area where there's a mosquito issue. Where I'm at St. John's Golf, generally if the mosquitoes start to get bad, if you just go on the county website, they'll be the next morning, they'll be around spraying. Where are you finding some of these areas that need your extra help from the sense of mosquitoes? Because imagine that everyone wants to be outside. They want to be by the pool. And if it's not caged in, obviously mosquitoes are a need. What are some things that you're doing there besides spraying? Is there other apparatuses that are available?
Yeah, if you don't want to do a fogging treatment, so we have these backpacks, and basically just the county will go by. The thing that the county doesn't do is they'll drive their trucks, and you are paying that. So if you look at your escrow account, you will see mosquito in there in St. Johns County. It's minimal, but you'll see it. So they'll take their trucks and they'll go drive down the streets and they'll go spray.
Right. Well,
where mosquitoes will lay their eggs is in the any sort of. So if you have a large plant, are you familiar with viburnum? Mm-hmm. They have large leaves. So any sort of tropical plant where dew will collect and will sit, that's where mosquitoes will lay their eggs. So if you're just spraying from the street, you're not going to be as effective as if you're walking around a yard with a backpack, because we're going to be targeting all of your shrubbery, spraying into the grass itself. Anywhere where there could be dew or water collecting, that's where we're going to treat. And if you don't want to go with a fogging treatment, you can actually they have baiting systems. They're not quite as effective, but they do work. And so a lot of times what we'll do is we'll do a fogging treatment around the perimeter of the home, and then we'll set these bait traps on the inside of a patio, like a rear screen lanai where you might have a pool, areas like that, or if you have a fountain somewhere in your yard, we can set these baits, and you can actually hang them from fruit trees. You can set it up on the side of a column on a house. They're pretty effective, and it just basically has a water-based solvent that's in there, and then every month when we come out to treat, and it's a monthly treatment for mosquito, we'll come back out and then rebait those.
Not a bad idea if you're listing a home that might be in one of these areas and you don't want the new possible homeowners to be walking out and getting bit by mosquitoes, because that might be the number one reason they might not buy the house. Right?
Never know.
Yeah, never know.
Yeah.
Might want, when you need to call Austin, come by and maybe do a pre-listing spray of mosquitoes.
For less than $100, you could be mosquito and bug free.
Yes, right. Because they figure this lasts about 30 days, the fogging. Is that the
Yep, it's
whole
about
premise
30
of it?
days. Yeah. So you'll never be able to eradicate. It's called mosquito suppression for a reason, right? We can't eliminate mosquitoes from the world, but we can suppress them. And if there's anything that I can guarantee a customer is that we can never, like I said, completely eliminate your mosquito problem, but we can suppress them down to where you might not see maybe one or two or none, for an extended period of time for those 30 days.
Health-wise with pets, how the chemicals you're using, I imagine obviously they got to calculate that into the mix.
Yeah, you have to be very careful with what you're mixing. The products that we only have a couple of restricted products that we use, and we reserve those products that are in the shop. We don't keep those on the trucks for termite services, and only very particular termite services. The stuff that we use is safe for pets. There's actually a couple of the products that we use that on the label itself, you can actually spray directly on your animals. So we're not going to do that. But if you ever go into a Petco store and you actually look at the active ingredients that are in some of the flea and tick sprays, it's some of the same exact products that we're using, just at a higher dosage for mosquitoes, ticks, fleas, anything that's kind of flying around.
I'm always worried, especially the lawn fertilization, the dog going out afterwards.
Yeah.
Always worried about them getting on their paws and then they lick their paws and all that kind of stuff, type of thing. In our original episode, we really talked about culture. Now how many employees are we talking total between the two companies here now?
We're over 35 employees total for both.
What have you found, and I just admire you as a young man. You're the way you do your business and your reputation is just out there. And we talked about culture and just, some of the stuff that we were talking about 2.5 years ago was so impressive because, if you listen to any of the personal development books or these leadership books, I'm listening to one right now written by Citadel alumni, Marine Maxims. If you haven't listened to that one, it's on leadership. He's a Marine, but a lot of stuff can be brought over into the business world. He's just relating his 30 years of studying leaders from the beginning of time and to leaders that he had. I'm in the middle of it, but anyway, but your leadership, and how now you've grown, you doubled in size in the last 2.5 years. You've added a company on. How are you maintaining the culture? How now that your management team is larger and just your overall, now you got 35 people that you're working with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that goes into that, and you got me on a good one here. So staying engaged with your people, having conversation, quarterly meetings, I think what's made me successful in business and with my employees and with others is just maintaining a good working relationship, just being myself. I'm not trying to be someone that I'm not. I'm simply just trying to be a good person. We could spend 2 hours on culture, and what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to make this into a 30-second response for you. So,
let's be more specific. As you've grown, what are some challenges that you started, or maybe saw some things happening, and obviously maybe you adjusted to cover them, but as to talk to someone who might have a growing company or thinking about growing companies and to foreshadow some challenges as you got larger. It's a little bit more difficult to have a conversation with everybody or see everybody at the shop in the morning or that type of thing. So what are some challenges you started to see and obviously kept them?
Yeah, so let's talk about this. Last year was challenging. Every year presents its own challenges. So last year presented its own challenges for the inspection world. And, we did have a rough few months, Q4 last year when rates started to hit close to 8%. It was hard on us.
Right.
And it was more of a kind of
The
an
home
overnight.
inspections just dropped.
It was
Right.
odd.
Yeah.
It went from balls to the wall to what happened. Did our phone number get turned off? What's happening? And during that time, when the saying when Warren Buffett says when the tide goes out, you kind of you're exposed to who
Yeah.
you are. Well, when money's coming in and everything's nice, people can just kind of blend in within your company, and you don't really
You're
see
busy.
a lot of things.
Everybody's
Busy, and when things get tough, you kind of start to go deeper into your business and figure out where are the holes, where do we need help on, where are we overstaffed on, where are we understaffed on, what's happening.
Where can you save some money?
Yeah. So last year during Q4 was the hardest time in my life as a business owner. I can legitimately say that I had sleepless nights. Was waking up 3:00 in the morning. Was talking to my wife. Am I failing? Like, what's going on here? This is not good. And those are the parts that people don't see. As a business owner. And I wasn't alone.
Right.
And there were other inspectors that were and other real estate professionals. And during that time, we had to make some hard cuts. People that were with us for quite some time, but we just started to dig deeper and find that they weren't the best fit for the company. There were things that were kind of leading up to the end of last year.
But you were busy
But we were busy and everyone was getting a paycheck, and it was never a time where no one was ever like, where we weren't able to pay anybody. It was never like that, but it was quick and it was fast, right? As soon as those rates jumped up, it was just like, okay, what's going on? And so I spent a lot of time. And what happened and where I failed on a leadership perspective is that when we were growing, we grew somewhat rapidly. If you look back at where we were and where we are now, it was somewhat of a rapid growth. And so I was in all these groups, and everything that people were telling you and that you were reading is just, get out of the business, let your people do what they got to do, right? And where I failed as a business owner, where I have learned, is accountability. And I didn't have a lot of accountability in my business. I trusted everyone to a fault. And when I tried to implement some of those strategies from like a cultural perspective, like, hey, like we need to do this is what it is, because the world's chaotic. And if you don't have certain set boundaries of, okay, this is what's expected of you, right? This is what you need to do, blah, 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 blah. It makes life just that much more difficult. And when I tried to implement some of those things, I was getting a lot of pushback because I let it go for so long. I did my best as a business owner to just step out and let my people do their thing. I didn't want to micromanage. I didn't want to, hover above them. That's not who I am as a person. And this is kind of leading to one of the questions that you said, what did I learn from that rapid growth that we had, is that I, as a business owner, did not have things in place to hold people accountable in the proper way. And looking back, had I have had weekly meetings with this person that were very structured and said, hey, this is what we need to do, blah, 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 blah. And we just hit those 4 or 5 things. Had I would have been structured enough to do that, a lot of the issues that we had last year have been a problem. But I just let things go on for so long. And then by the time, I'm like, okay, why am I not getting a paycheck anymore? And then I'm digging deeper into the business. I'm like, okay, this isn't getting done. This isn't happening.
Give us some, you don't have to mention names, obviously, but just so any other business owner that's watching this right now, which all of our agent friends are all business owners too, and some of them are growing to add people to their, not to the scale that you're at, but what are some things for, give us some that we can actually stick to the wall? Like what was it happening that you wanted to happen? You gave them the reins to make it happen, but it just wasn't happening.
Yeah, there was a lot. And it wasn't just one person. In our business, it's a heavy relationship building business in the home inspection world, right? We build relationships with realtors, and the same goes for them with us and their vendors, right? Like they want to know us, they want to know the roofer, they want to know their pest guy, they want to be friends with them because we're an extension of their business.
Yep.
So with the home inspections, our number one focus is first our customers. We want to make sure they're happy and they had a good home inspection. After that, we want to make sure that we're in good graces with our realtors and that we love them. They send us work. We really do appreciate what they're doing out there. And not for us, not following up with our realtors, our agents, right? We have inside of our system, we're able to see one of the biggest things that we look at are inactive agents. And what we would consider to be an active agent is anyone that used us from point A to point B, and then they haven't used us from point B to point C, which is 90 days. So if we don't, like if they used us one time or 10 times here, but they haven't used us once within 90 days, we want to know, okay, what happened, what's going on.
Right.
And so we want to follow up, like, hey, did you have a good experience? Are you still selling homes? You know, we ask a number of questions. How's it going? We'll send them gifts, you know, little gift cards, whatever, just to kind of just
Re-engage.
Yeah, re-engage. And that was one thing that just flat out wasn't getting done for most of our agents. And so we weren't getting any answers on why they're not using us anymore. It was always, you know, if you know, a question was asked, like, hey, what happened here? What happened here? Why haven't they used us? And now 6 months, you know, what happened? And they're like, oh yeah, we'll follow up, or oh, I'm not sure, you know, we're too busy doing this, too busy doing that. The follow-up was not there, and that was unfortunate. That was one of the things for like,
again,
where would that,
like I said, because you're so busy, you don't really see these things. Now things start to slow down. So now you start looking at your processes, right?
Right.
You're looking at these things, and are we doing it? When was the last? And so obviously one of those things is, when was the last time we did business with X real estate agent?
And as a business owner, I just want to simply know why,
Yeah.
right? Is it that you're not selling anymore? Okay, great. Enjoy your life. You sold whatever.
Well, they went on a vacation and just didn't
right?
have any listings, right?
Did a competitor come along and say, hey, here's a steak dinner? You know, like what happened? Can they be bought? You know? And so not knowing that is bad for me, because then I'm flying blind. And all of this squarely comes back on my shoulders. And because I failed as a business owner, not setting these things in place, I failed my company and I failed those people, right? That ultimately are no longer with us. So having structure in place, I can't stress that enough. That is the one thing that I can say that
I was listening to this very interesting podcast this morning. Patrick Bet David, a successful businessman. He was talking to Sean Cannell, who's a YouTuber, media company. Both of them have media companies now, but Patrick Bet-David came from the insurance side. And he talked about specifically he hired his business grew exponentially, hires these high-end C-suite executives, like 5 of them at the same time, he said. And one of them came to him and said, whoever was the president or whatever of the company came to him as the owner and said, hey, I want to hire these analysts. I want to hire an analyst. He's, well, what do I need that for? You know, how much is it going to cost me? $60,000 salary. And he's like, all right, that's what you want to do. No, but I want to hire 3 of them. So they go back, and the short story is they went in and found the analytics of what states, because he's in multiple states selling insurance, and where was it easier to get licensed and grow easier than other states and that sort of thing. And so breaking down what you're saying right here resonated with me, like you breaking down, like, why isn't, now this is one piece of this puzzle, but why isn't these agents calling me back and spend 90 days? What's going on? You need to know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I've heard from your podcast with all of the agents that have been here, and you ask your agents, what makes you successful? Mm-hmm. And I went back and listened to some of your podcasts before I came back on, and the number one thing, so I almost want to write it down on a sheet of paper and then just turn it around to you. What's the number one thing that agents will tell you that makes them successful?
You go, the number one thing.
Ooh. As a real estate agent, like what do they...
Oh, you really put me on the spot here now. This is good.
So what I want to do here...
There's multiple things that I can think of right off the top. Communication is, I would have to say, number one.
Communication.
Mm-hmm.
And what better, as far as communication goes, than numbers? And so what I want to communicate to you is our numbers as far as what we track. One of the numbers that we track is agent retention. Mm-hmm. And do you know the amount of homes that an average real estate agent sells in the United States?
The average, I think, is like 6, if I'm not mistaken. If you're looking across the grand scheme, every from 0 to 12, like for instance, in Northeast Florida, there's like 12,000 agents licensed.
So across the country, and fact check me if you're one of the brokers listening on here, it's less than 2 houses a year that the average real estate agent.
Okay, so we're saturating down every single one, 0 to people selling 100.
Yeah, right. It's 1 point something. Since 2021, our agent retention has gone from I looked at this morning, 2.2 to now we're almost at 4. So that means the average agent that's using us is using us almost 4 times a year, which is
once a quarter.
Right. Almost mm-hmm. 4 times the average of the national average. Mm-hmm. So that's really important to us. And what that says to me is that the agents that use us stay with us, and they trust us. I think as a home inspector or as a real estate agent or someone who is a business owner, what's really important to know as a real estate agent, if you're just getting started or if you're a seasoned agent, at some point in time in your 30-year career, the odds of you getting a knock on your door of, getting a lawsuit or someone not being very happy with you is pretty high. Right? If you're a business owner that's successful, someone's going to come a knocking. And the part that I think agents see in our company is that we are an asset to them with the quality of work that we perform, right? So what that also tells me is that the top performing agents who use us see that value and know that if they ever get into a bind or if they ever have an issue, they can come back to us and know that they're in good hands with our company. We have several agents that have reached out to us that we've either done an inspection for on the listing side, or their customer found us on Google and they kind of saw our reports and how we put together and how informational they are, and like, oh my gosh, I didn't know it was like this. I didn't know these were things. And so I'm really, really proud of that number. And for me, that speaks volumes to know that the average agent uses us nearly 4 times a year.
You go to these conferences, or do they talk about this stat that's one of the numbers?
Yep.
What are you hearing from the other companies? Obviously, you're proud about where you're at, so you must be above the average of what.
Yeah, the average is across these larger companies that we're with are anywhere in between the 2 and 3s. 2 and 3s. So we're just getting up into close to the 4 number, right around that.
Right.
So we're a little bit higher, but you can't really get that much higher, right? Like if you stay a small company and you only work with 100 of the number 1 top agents in Jacksonville, but at some point they're just going to be all listing side, and they're not going to have a lot of buyers, so you might not even get 4 out of like a top producing agent, right? And so it's hard to get much higher than where we're at right now, but yeah, you just want to make sure that whoever's using you is using you.
Yeah. Well, well, my real estate friends that are listening, every loan officer is going to tell you this. I'm sure, Austin, you would agree. Real estate agents don't have the greatest loyalty at all times. Some do.
Yep.
There are a unique group that understand the importance of having that go-to team, that team that you can call at 7 a.m. because you need something done right away. For some reason, the other home inspector didn't show up in your situation, or, that's, we got a lot of extra puzzle pieces in the loan world right now. Everybody's got extra issues going on, and we got to put some extra things together. Who's going to find that person? If I can't do it, do I know someone that can do that type of loan? And have those resources. You've got to have those 2 or 3 people in every little service that you can rely on and go to. And they're there because obviously they want to earn your business, but you got to give it back.
Right.
You got to say, yeah, you gave us 1, but we're loyal to you, and we're going to continue giving you great service, but we can't continue giving you great service if we're only getting 1 a year from you.
Right.
Type of thing. So
and they want us to sponsor $1,000 for a party. It's like, well,
exactly.
Yeah.
We love to give. There's no doubt. We love to be part of the thing, and we definitely love on our people who are regularly using you. And here, Austin's got a short. He's got his black book of who's using them the most. But that is a vital statistic in your growth. Let's jump into the home inspections, because at home inspection now, with the insurance issues, and on the 18th, I actually have Cindy Hayden's coming back on. I had her on before Ari Barcamp. She's on the National Association of Realtor. She's a chairperson of the insurance. So we're going to be talking about all things insurance in Florida on that podcast on the 18th. But part of that is you and the home inspection side.
Yeah.
Now, it's important that I assume you're doing wind mitigation on every single report now.
Just about. That's a number that I don't know what percentage that we're using, but it's high. It's probably at least 70%.
Every insurance company wants it now.
Yeah, and it used to be that insurance companies didn't care about a 4-point for up until 2020-ish. A 4-point wasn't required until the home was 30 years old. It was always 30 years. If it was 30 years, if it was 28 years, you didn't need it. Now they want a 4-point inspection on a 3-year-old townhome, which, as a home inspector, it's a little confusing for us why they want it, but they need it, so we got to do it.
Right.
But there's also a lot of agents who are newer or have been in the business a few years that I have conversations with that simply don't know what a 4-point is. And for me, someone who's in it every day, I'm like, oh, really? Okay. They're 4 points, right? And it's a roof, it's electrical, it's HVAC, and it's plumbing. And what a 4-point basically is they just want to know what's the age and the condition of those major components.
Right.
The crazy part to me is that they want nothing, they want no information on the structural integrity of the home, right? They don't want any information. Is the house falling over? Is it getting eaten up by termites?
Is the foundation cracking?
They just want to know, is the AC cold, and is the roof going to fall off?
Right.
And the other things. But yeah, so that's interesting. The 4 points, that they want to know about. But it's a very basic form. It's basically about 6 pages long, and it's not a lot of pictures except for just the equipment itself. And,
right. Which all those things you're already doing in your regular inspection.
Right.
You're just copying them over or whatever onto that. Is there a specific form?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, you're using a citizen state form that we use. So it's accepted through all the insurance carriers here in Florida.
Right.
But yeah, essentially you're copying over a lot of that information and then just doing a couple more permit searches, for those particular items. But if you don't have to, if the house is 3 years old and everything's original,
right.
You're not really pulling permits,
Right.
It's just all original.
But it's just all of us, it seems like it's all of a sudden, I know, but it's probably been, the last year. Obviously the roofs are the big thing now. Actually, when I had Cindy on originally, she said she was replacing the roof on her house, and she told them, no, just give me the cheap 10, 15-year shingles. I don't need the 25, because if I go to sell this house and it's 15-year-old roof, they're going to want it replaced. Because the insurance companies that are willing to take a 15-year roof now in Florida are minimal, are only a handful, and obviously you're going to pay more.
So what insurance companies are really looking for when we do a 4-point inspection on a roof is giving it 5 years of life.
Right.
And so if you have an architectural shingle, I would advise not doing a 3-tab shingle, by the way, if you're reading this, because that, to go from on a 2,000 square foot house, and a roofer can correct me here, it's not much more. It's probably $1,500 more to go from a 3-tab to an architectural. And the reason why you're not going to get it, there's multiple reasons why you're not going to get as much life from a 3-tab shingle. If they're a thinner shingle, the wind resistance isn't as much. It's got less than 100 miles an hour, 100 mile an hour wind resistance. So if you put it by the beach, you get one good storm, it could kind of blow those away. And then they're only going to last about 10 to 15 years. Realistically, with a 3-tab. Where architectural, they say it's 25 years. You can get them up there, but it takes a little bit more work on the insurance side. So if we go to a house and it's 15 years old, are we telling the customers that they're not going to get it insured? No, absolutely not. What we are looking for is just the condition of that roof. Do you have a lot of granular loss? Is there hail damage? Is there anything there? And if we can give it 5 years on a 4-point, there's typically no problem. But if we put 3 years or less, then red flags go up, and then the underwriter's like, oh, we can't do anything with this,
right.
And then it takes a little bit more work to get a roofer out here, because then they want a roofer to say it's got 5 years. And so yeah, you're right.
We need to have a panel of you, an insurance agent, and maybe because the other thing we've been talking about and talking with the insurance agents, because from the financial side or from the agent's representative, they're expecting a certain payment, right? When they call us and go, hey, what do you think a payment would be on this house? I have no idea what the insurance is, so we put a number in there.
Yeah.
When it was the new builds and I was doing a lot of the new construction, I'd put $100 in there for insurance, and a lot of times it was a little bit less than that. Especially if townhouse, it would be less than that. Yeah. Maybe just a little bit more, but it was close. Yeah. Now they can go out to one of these existing homes, and it could be blown up. So we're from the loan officer side and talking to the real estate agents and the insurance agents is when that person wants to look at that house, you need to call an insurance agent so that they can start doing their due diligence in the back to find out the age of the roof. And then the other thing is obviously the hot water heaters.
I think the important part to stress too is how much of a headache this can be on the realtor side. Mm-hmm. It's difficult for us, right? And as a home inspector, I think I said it on the beginning side, I've said it all the time, but we don't wake up in the morning and go, what deal can I kill today? Can I get up on this roof and put a year on it? That's not what we want to do.
Right.
And it's stressful on us. It creates more work on our side. It really does, because it's a lot more phone calls that are going on. But when we go to a house, and a home inspector will never kill a deal per se, the house itself will kill its own deal because it wasn't maintained well.
You're just telling the truth.
Right. And so we're just telling the truth. We're telling the story about the house. Yeah. And we'll do our best to make everybody feel comfortable. But one of the things on the 4 points is if we get to a house and it has an 18-year-old roof and it truly doesn't have a lot of life left, it's brittle, it's got granular loss, it's got minimal ventilation, there's lots of things that are going on. And then the realtor will call and say, they'll go around the office and they'll call me and say, can you put 5 years of life on this roof? We just need it for this deal to close. We just need it for this deal to close. Well, one, that's not really what we should be doing or can do or what we even do. But what the agents need to realize is that if they do that and they put themselves in that position to where they're begging and pleading to have an inspector put a higher number of years of life left on this roof, well, they're kind of putting their customer in a bad spot. They may not get that house, but if I say, okay, this roof has only got 1 to 2 years of life left, and then they're like, oh, well, we need to say 5 because we really need to steal their first time, you'll hear all the sad stories. And what happens is sometimes insurance companies now, they're doing it more than ever. They'll do the drive-bys, in 90 days, they'll go, driving by. And then if they go and look at that roof 90 days after they close and they're like, well, the pictures look a little suspect. You now need a roofer to come over here and give you 5 years. Well, if the roofer comes by and they get 2 or 3 or 4 roofers and none of them will give them 5 years, they have now put their customers into a situation where they got to come out of pocket $10,000 or more to go replace that roof. So, yeah, the deal closed and, yeah, you got your check, but now your customers are footed with the bill. And do you think that customer's going to want to refer you to their friends and family after what just happened there? Because
even though it was their choice to move forward with that situation, they're going to blame the agent.
Or the inspector. And all of that looks bad onto that customer, all of that. And if you're in this for the long game, that's not something that top agents will want to do. I'll tell you that right now. The top agents don't
put your reputation out there.
Right. But it does happen all the time. And because we do so many inspections, we get these a lot. And
kind of putting you guys in a corner.
Yeah.
And that is, integrity. We talk about, communication being one of the things, but obviously we know and trust, right? We know that was important. You were kind of leading into a little bit of, your credibility as a company. They trusted you, but where was the right? Because the 90 days, that's what made me think of those 3 things. But when you start asking a respected business owner to bend their, and go outside what they professionally, you're feeling uncomfortable doing it, but then you feel pressure like, well, I really want this person's business. And then it just comes a snowball of that could just blow up.
Right.
In your face. And the reality is, I think agents need to realize, which I think the top ones do, most of these, we have more equity in our homes right now than ever. The price, the value of these homes are going. So to have a roof replaced because it's aged, or negotiating that into whether you do an escrow holdback, so it's done after closing, or because maybe the seller doesn't actually have the physical cash, but they just do the escrow holdback and have it, is putting everybody in the right spot. And you're going to look good because you negotiated that. And the selling agent should understand, if you're going to pass on this buyer, the next buyer is going to be asking the same exact thing. So you might as well deal with what's in front of you.
Yep, exactly. So it is uncomfortable, and you are looking at that from a business perspective, but you're also looking at it from a human perspective. And there's so many ways that you're looking at it, but yeah, you're right. And it's they kind of will force your hand a little bit, like, hey, I've sent you this business. Hey, like, what's going on here? Like this, we need this deal to close. Make it happen. And it makes you feel very uncomfortable. And we don't get it. Like I said, the top agents, they won't really mess with it because they know. But from a lot of the other newer agents or some of the others who are doing 1 or 2 deals a year, those are very uncomfortable situations. And the unfortunate part from that is if we don't bend and we, lose this deal, right? Fast news or good news spreads like molasses, but bad news spreads like lightning. And, the agents say, oh, yeah, they killed this deal for us. They wouldn't put X amount of years of life left. And then they'll tell their friends, oh, yeah, don't use these guys. You'll hear all these stories. And you hear it from everybody, right? From the top inspection companies, we'll hear these stories. And from the bottom guys, we'll hear these stories. And I'm sure I'm not out there.
Well, the thing is, it's every inspector. So you guys are equally being sent either way.
Exactly. So, anyways, but I will tell you, And I'll be very upfront and open. We've been sued 3 times as a home inspection company. And every single time that we've been sued, we've got out of it with a 57501. And basically the agents after those 3 times because what happens when you get into these lawsuits and you do these type of things, I think it's important for us to talk about this. And I'm not afraid. Yeah. Every inspector knows that they can call me and I am an open book. I will tell them everything about it. And I'm in front of the world now on your podcast. And we've been sued 3 times. And all 3 times the agents have basically loved us at this point, because what has happened is our reports were so black and white, they were so detailed, they were so informative that the things that we were trying to be sued on were actually in their reports, but communication wasn't there from their end. They didn't read the reports, they didn't review the reports with the customers. And so basically what our attorneys do, I think it's a 57105 or 501, but basically what that does is that our attorney goes to the plaintiff's attorney and says, hey, this is black and white, we're not going back and forth with this, we're going to sue that attorney or just get out of this deal, right? And so this goes back to the roofing thing, and I've said it before in the past, like where we're an asset to you. Our reports are so detailed, they're so informative, we have so much information on there that you can sleep at night knowing that if you ever get into a tough or a bad situation, you're covered. Your butt's covered. Your broker's going to love you that you have these reports. I actually had a call from, I can't say the brokerage, we had a call from a brokerage at one of the largest brokerages in the country 2 or 3 months ago. And I was actually at an inspection, and this attorney called me and he said, hey, I'm attorney, blah, 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 calling from this brokerage. And is this Austin? I said, that really depends on who's asking this question. He's like, don't hang up. I was like, okay. And he's like, your report is actually helping us in the situation. I need some questions. I need you to answer some things for me. And so we never got involved in this particular thing, but they had one of our reports that they were going after the listing agent from some of this information. Long story short, our report was able to help get the listing agent out of this very particular situation.
So you've been sued 3 times. What is the main thing that they're including you in the lawsuit? Are they actually suing the agent, but including you in? Yep. What's going on? What happens here?
All 3 have been from the buyers, and the buyers, what happens when you get into a lawsuit, and being in 3 of them, I can tell you what happens. Buyer gets unhappy because of something. And
something breaks.
Or they see something. And do you know what's really interesting about 3 things? And if you're a realtor reading this, maybe it'll spark you like, oh my gosh, maybe I need to read this. Is as a home inspector, we have we can go into our system and we can click on each report, we can read the IP address, and this is what the judges are asking for, this is what the attorneys are asking for. They want to know the IP address, when did you open the report, when did your customer open the report, did you read it, because we can see how far you've scrolled in the reports. And so all 3 of them, guess what?
The software you use can spit that information out, because in your industry this stuff comes up.
Yep. So do you know the interesting part is all 3 of those, the agents never opened up the inspection report until after a certain amount of time. They opened up 3 months later. And so what the agents aren't doing in these situations, and this is just 3 times, being pulled into this mess. And I know that this is happening all the time. And what they're not doing is they're not doing their customers they're not doing their job, basically, is they're not going in there and educating their customers on exactly what's going on. Some of these customers aren't opening up for a few days, or they may only open up like the insurance report. So it's like a lot of people will not even open up their reports. They won't read it. And so they'll go into the house.
They paid you all this money to do an inspection and not even actually looking at it, unless obviously there's some major issue, which obviously you bring to the forefront and say, hey, you got a problem here. You need to figure out what you want to do with that.
Yeah. And so
they're not looking at all the other not so important stuff.
So we will call
this just blows my mind, actually.
It's crazy. And when we hang up, call a couple inspectors, hey, how many people do you know that people don't have reports? And they'll tell you. It's a known thing. It's kind of crazy. But we will call our customers, right? And we'll call them, and if they don't answer, we leave voicemails. We say, hey, we just had your inspection. There's a couple things going on here. Give us a call if you have anything, blah, 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 blah. Most of the conversations that we have are less than 5 to 10 minutes with our customers if they're not there at the inspection. I'll say the number one thing that you can do as a realtor is just to be present. Come to the inspection, right? Just be there. That way at the very end, we can kind of talk about everything that's going on. If you can't hang out with us for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, depending on the size of the house, don't do that. But try to come towards the end at least so we can have that conversation so you can be there. But if you're a realtor and you're not reading your reports thoroughly with your customers, you need to be doing that. Our reports and most of the reports now that the larger companies are using, they're all the same software that we're using. They're very interactive. They're very easy to read and understand. You can shorten your reports to just see the deficiencies and not just the informational stuff in there. And so you can scroll through some of these things and 10,
get the highlight points that are important.
Get the highlight reels. But yeah, I'll say that's the number one thing for the agents. This has been such a big conversation about the roofing thing and how it kind of spun off to this. But it's important to know that.
Well, in the lawsuit, you go in, you find out they didn't even look at the report.
Exactly. And so we're saying to the customer, so this has been now, this is the very first one. And this particular customer had sent us an email about a month after we did the inspection.
So they've closed on the home.
They've closed on the home. This was a multi-million-dollar home. And the customer had stated, hey, Mr. Gray, we have a problem in our house. We have bats. And I said, yeah, that looks like a problem. I said, here's a screenshot, 5.3-4. States that you clearly had a critter issue in your attic with lots of droppings and lots of things. And you also had 5 openings on the outside of your house. Did you get that addressed before you went to closing?
And you have a service that could fix this.
Not at the time. Okay. Not at the time. I think this was 2018.
Okay.
This one was.
Yeah.
And not at the time. I wish though. So anyways, that's what was going on. And, we didn't hear anything else until I got a knock on the door, from, getting my summons served or whatever, 2 months later. And we were getting sued. So the buyer's brokerage and us were getting sued. And the seller's broker, there's 3 people in the suit.
Everyone they get reasonably
and so that's what happens when you get into a lawsuit is people will take, get an attorney on here. People will take spaghetti, throw it on a wall, and they'll see what sticks.
Yeah.
Because they want to go after your insurance, they want to go after the broker's insurance, everybody. They want to go after everybody and just see what happens.
Right.
And they just hope that you kind of bend over and say, okay, here you go, just go away.
Right.
They were coming after us for $125,000. The sellers were getting the seller's brokerage was getting the worst of it at $250,000
because they have the insurance,
and then the buyer's brokerage was up 125, so it was 125. I think it was 250. All in all, it was like a $500,000 lawsuit, and because bats are very expensive to go in there and remediate, it can cost $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 depending on the severity of the issue to remediate bats because they're protected species. They're very dirty. You have to wear pet suits. It's not fun.
Protected inside the house.
As far as inside the house, I'm not sure. We actually don't touch bats. That's a
specialty
company. Actually, we don't want anything to do with them.
Right.
They're nasty and dirty, so they spread lots of diseases.
Yeah.
So there were 3 people that were involved, and essentially what happened was they were coming after us because we didn't disclose that there were bats in the attic. Well, a home inspector is not supposed to tell you what kind of animal or critter is in an attic.
There's something up there.
There's a critter, and a critter is everything. A critter is a raccoon, it's a squirrel, it's a roach, it's everything. And long story short with that one, like I said, we were just like, okay, here's the report. You had 4 different things in this thing that said here is in the summary. It said this, it said that. However, you didn't open up this report until 63 days after we did the inspection or 36 days, or whatever it was.
Right.
So you now read this thing and go, oh, whoa, I didn't see this in the inspection report. You get a little upset. Who knows?
Right.
And the agent didn't open it until after we got served because we could see all of, whenever they had opened it back up. So I don't want to get too carried away on this.
Well, you make me think because, one thing in the loan world, every time, when the appraisal's done, right, we have to, the buyer has to get that appraisal. There's a time period that they have to get it. Now, obviously, as soon as it goes through our quality control to make sure the appraisal is all good, it's done to lending standards, we send a copy to the buyers. They paid for it. They have to e-sign a document saying they have received the report.
Yep.
It sounds like your world may come to that. Not that you guys have the regulation that we have as from the lending side, but it almost would be advantageous as a service thing to say, hey, yeah, I sent someone out and they have to e-sign that they received it and they e-signed it on this date.
Yeah.
They said they received the report, whether they read it or not. But it is great that this technology is there, and it is there when they actually open it. And did they actually, just see the cover page and say enclose, or did they actually scroll through it?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually, I don't know if we could do that, but making,
it's just an e-sign.
you know, if we could do an initial, you know, go to the software company and say, hey, because they're always like, hey, how can we help you guys? What do you guys need? And so they take a community of people. And
well, what I think would be the easiest thing right away is the agents are using their whatever the e-sign DocuSign, yeah. So they could just, if you actually just sent them the document in a PDF that says, you know, hey, Gray Home Inspections, you know, you've received your report. Any questions? Blah 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 blah. Please sign here that you have received it. They can send it out there for them to e-sign it, and I think it would actually be that quality control and give the agent say, yeah, they got the report. Because I know your story right there, I've never heard a story like that before. I never, you know, anyone can be sued, but what silliness are they being sued for? And that's silliness. The guy never looked at the report.
Basically,
I mean, come on,
So when when you get those reports, they're very scary. They're very mean, you know, and they'll say, see attachment here. They had only attached the signed agreement for the inspection agreement, but they never said any sort of mention about the inspection report at all. And so when we said, hey, what about this inspection report here? Can you submit this as part of your evidence? Because here's ours. Then the tone quickly changed.
Right.
But it sucks because guess what? You know how much it costs to get out of a lawsuit? Depending. So
you might have gone and had the bats removed. It might have been cheaper.
Out of those three, we've spent a collective over $25,000 on the three just to get out of it.
Yeah.
And guess what? That comes out of the agent's brokerage's pocket too. They're spending the same thing just to go get an attorney to defend yourself when you're completely innocent. And it's frustrating as a business owner to know that you are completely in the right. You've done nothing wrong. You've done everything to the book, to the T, but yet you've got to come out of pocket tens of thousands of dollars just to get out of this thing.
We're seeing that. I mean, obviously in our industry all over. I mean, every day, you know, who wasn't included in the NAR settlement back in the fall, and then these other brokerages now. I think Real just wrote a $10 million check or something. I don't know. I just saw that in a flash. I'm not sure, saying that that's what happened. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know if the lawyers are slow or there's just now too many of them. Well, there's been too many of them for a long time. They're looking for this type of stuff. But like I said, they're just trying to tap into the insurance companies. Yeah, which is ending up costing us that much more. From the home inspection side, in the last 2.5 years, has anything changed? Are you guys, I don't know what comes down from the state or federal government as far as what you guys are required to do, or are you doing things a little differently than you were 2.5 years ago?
So we're doing more, and we have so many data points, and you'll get lost in the sauce. Everybody in every business, if they've got their softwares, they've got a million data points that you can look at. One of the interesting ones is that when a customer books a home inspection as compared to when an agent books an inspection, it's about 35% higher of a ticket price than when an agent books an inspection. So what's happening is that the customers are going through and they're picking what services that they want, because the agents, nope, just a home inspection and a WDO, right? Like that. We just need this. And then what'll happen is the customer will get on here because they'll have to sign things, and we say, here's a list of our other services. Would you like any of these? We have videos, we have all this information. We're not trying to scare people. People still buy houses.
They want to know what they're buying.
Right? And one of the first, so we do sewer scopes. And we've actually given our templates for sewer scopes to other inspection companies in Jacksonville, because we started doing them so heavily to where agents would be like, why are you doing these sewer scope inspections when nobody else is doing them? And it was a little frustrating on our part because we see it a lot, and we're getting these bills for $5, $10, $30, $50,000 for sewer lines. Get a plumber on here and they'll tell you why sewer lines are so expensive. And so finally we got some of our other inspection companies in Jacksonville to kind of wake up to it. Like, hey guys, this is what we're seeing here. You could be set up for something if you get into a bad situation with a seller who's just not very, or a buyer who's not very happy. You guys could get tossed into this. So now it's becoming almost commonplace to do these sewer scope inspections. One of the very first ones that we did, this was probably right after our podcast that we had. It was one of the top agents, our brokerage, one of the top brokers in Jacksonville, and she actually helps to run bar camp. This was like the first week that we got our sewer camera, and I was really anxious to use it. So I drove out to Fleming Island. That came in that day, and one of the guys was there doing the inspection, and I stuck this camera down this line, and they had added a circular drive 20 years ago. Come to find out that this pipe was actually crushed underneath the driveway. There was like a low spot where it was kind of settling, whatever. Anyways, it was going to be like a $20,000 bill. And her friend was moving from California to come here, this broker. And had we not have done this, that customer, a year later, 6 months, a week later, could have found out that soft spot, that wet spot in that yard wasn't just
pipe.
a lower part of the yard. And like that right there was enough for me to go, okay, we're all getting these cameras. We're all doing this. We had a house in Bowles, and this is actually one of our YouTube videos that we shared to our customers. It was over $40,000 to do a repipe on this house. And the reason why it's so expensive is if you get into a property where they have cast iron pipes and you're on a slab, you got to bust up your slab to replace this pipe. Like the pipe itself costs, $500, right? But to bust up the tile and the wood floors and the walls, and
if the problem is under the slab,
and the odds of you having an issue with a cast iron pipe underneath the slab today is pretty high. The last time they were put in was in the 1970s. So these pipes are corroding. They're starting to basically collapse on each other. I know years ago you probably saw, do you have cast iron pipes under your house?
Yeah.
You may be entitled to compensation. So no longer those days. But anyways, so we're finding a lot of issues, and it's important that customers know and understand what they're getting. And with a sewer line inspection, that's what we're doing a lot of now. We're doing that on more than 50% of our home inspections. It's a very cheap add-on. It's about $199 to $250, depending on the length of the run.
And you definitely recommend it for houses that are older than...
Brand new even,
because I've heard some stories. The builder's gone back over and crushed their own pipe.
So I had one... push me for this because I'll get it to you. This was... We've had more than... probably at least 20 or more on new construction that they were digging up yards. So I had this lady, it's in Nocatee, if you go to the very back, nope.
I don't know that.
So this is there's still houses being built in there. Okay. These are the nicer ones. And so I went in there, and the last thing that I did, they were actually leaving, because I did everything in the house. I'm like, hey, last thing I got to do is your sewer line. Hey, we're going to go to dinner, right? It's a 1 o'clock inspection, big house, 5 o'clock. Okay. And so they're getting in the van, and I'm putting the camera down. It's in their front door. And I was like, hey, come here, look at this. I didn't need to get very far. It was about a foot into it. Anyways, the whole bottom of the pipe was missing, and there was dirt that was just coming in there. There was roots that were already starting to grow through. So that pipe had actually been
This was they hadn't actually moved in yet.
No, this was an 11-month. This is a warranty inspection.
Oh, wow, good.
And so paver driveway, whatever. And so they're like, oh, how do you fix it? And I'm like, no, see this driveway? It's not going to be here pretty soon because they're going to have to bust it up, dig your ground, and then make this repair on this pipe. And had they have not spent that extra $199, $250, in that range,
it could have gone a couple of years before it started to back up.
$10,000 bill. Your average sewer line repair bill in the United States is nearly $12,000.
Yeah.
The roof is not the most expensive item in your house that you'll ever replace. It's your sewer line. For less than $200 for the most part, to understand what you're getting into, it's great. And so, yeah, you were onto something. If we get to the house and we see that there's a large tree within that service lateral somewhere near there, we want to do it. If there's been an added driveway in the front, anything where they've had weight or whatever, we want to look into those areas. Or if it's cast iron, if it's cast iron, we want to take a look at it. And so another frustrating part for realtors is that if we get into a situation with an older house built in the 30s, 40s, whatever, where they say, hey, the sewer line's been replaced, most of the time the sewer line that's been replaced it might only just be underneath the house itself, and because that part, when you're off grade, can be much cheaper, right? $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. But most of the time they're not replacing the part that's in the ground from the connection point in front of the house to the street. That's the other $8,000-$10,000 or whatever it is there. So when we come in and we say, okay, yeah, you've got PVC here, but you're turned into cast iron at your clean out, things start to happen, and then people get upset sometimes.
I want to go back because the way you said that, if the real estate agent's ordering the inspection, they're not obviously they're not really giving their customer the customer service, because they look at these other things, and obviously the agent's not going to sit there. And they probably don't have your brochure or something. You go, oh, look at all the services. Which ones do you want? Check off, and I'll order these for you. They're just ordering that basic home. And you may have somebody somewhere. I know insurance-wise, my wife is there. Oh, we need to make sure we have the extra insurance, especially on the cars, or we have an umbrella policy, and all those types of things. If the insurance agent doesn't ever ask for that, and the people don't even know that service is even available, then yeah, they're not going to order it. But these people will check off these additional services, which also protects the agent. The agent orders that thing and doesn't get the pipe inspection. There's opportunity for someone to come in and sue you. Why didn't you order the pipe inspection? Right. You knew this could have had cast iron pipes, or in your case, you're saying the new home builders are probably just as guilty as the cast iron pipe.
We had rebar going through a. This is on one of our Instagram pages too. We post most of our stuff there, but we had a piece of rebar going through a pipe in Del Webb, Rivertown, a couple weeks ago. So we put our camera down there. Oh, that's not supposed to be there. Come back up, dig it up, redo it.
Wow. Putting it under the driveway, is that something just depending on how the house is positioned, or putting it under the driveway common for the
lot lines, depending on how the house is built, depending on just where the plumbing is designed to go, right? So when the draftsman will draw your house, because I was a draftsman for years, and so where the draftsman will draw, then they basically will give these house plans to a plumber, to this other guy, and he'll go, okay, your toilet's here, this is here, and then they'll take all your lines, they'll say, okay, it's most efficient to go right here, and then if you've got a 40-foot wide lot and the clean outs at the front center of the house, the driveway's got to go here because you have a side entry garage, But there are some or a lot that are not underneath the driveway, but sometimes it's just the way it goes.
It's going to cost you that much more because you're basically redoing an entire driveway.
Yeah, and what'll happen on that, going back, is there's this old adage that realtors will say, not all. Some realtors will say, hey, when they're talking with the customer, how much does this cost? How much does this cost? How much does this cost? A lot of them are still stuck back in the 90s or the early 2000s, or, they've just heard from who they were taught, it should cost you about $400. It should cost you about $500, right? Well, when they're buying a 3,000 square foot house and we're there for, 4 or 5, 6 hours, and they need all these other services now because insurance is involved, they need a termite letter, and they need all these things, it's sticker shock for a lot of people, right? And so what we have found is that when a customer goes on there and they book the inspection themselves, and then they go, oh, wow, you know what? I think I actually want this. This sounds like a good idea.
Because they know a friend that had a problem with it.
That's the thing. So we started doing sewer scope inspections about, maybe right around the time that we did that first podcast, about 2 years ago. And then the other thing that we do, and this is one that will frustrate a lot of agents, but it'll frustrate them if it's not communicated in the proper way. Mold is a thing, right? We also own Environix. Environix is an environmental services solution company. We'll use Environix to do mold assessments, remediation, and then we do lead paint testing, asbestos, all that stuff. So what we will do now that we're also licensed mold assessors is we'll go in and we'll educate people. Hey, every house that's building in here, I promise you, I'll swab one of these walls and we'll come back with mold, right? But it's educating the customer in such a way that they understand. It's Florida, whatever, right? And so a lot of our customers are now doing our indoor air quality on most of the homes that we inspect. We're doing those on about 40%. I said most. So we're doing that on a lot of homes that we inspect.
My wife would probably order that one. She's got the filters in the house and all that kind of. She's concerned about the air quality now. You just don't know what your customer, sees as important. And if you just go in and click, just give me the basic home inspection, you could be cheating them out of a lot of different stuff that they would have ordered from you.
Yeah, and there was, whenever I was getting started in pest control several years ago, my business coach that I was like, hey, I got to quote this house. It's 7,000 square feet. They want pest, they want termite, they want rodent, they want mosquito, they want all this stuff. And I'm like, they're not going to pay this. This is, if we did it like at a good, like fair price, I'm like, this is almost $300 a month for all this stuff. And you have no idea what value is to this person or that person. You could tell them $5,000 and they would be like, oh my gosh, yep, we need it. We don't want to ever see anything.
Right.
Or you can go to this person and tell them it's $20. I can't believe you're charging me $20 to kill roaches. Like, I'll just go to Walmart.
Exactly.
And so that's the same thing with your customer.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And sometimes those customers want to spend $1 million and they want to know everything that could possibly be on with this because they've seen the internet, they've seen the home inspector videos on social media now, they've seen all of these things that have happened. And if you're only going and saying, hey, we just need an inspection, don't worry about any of the other stuff because this could just cause more work for me, because essentially that's what it does for a realtor, right? If I'm going in there and I'm doing all these other services, it will basically cause you more work, right? More negotiating. Yeah. But at the same time, isn't that kind of what you want? The best for your customer. Right. You're all about getting those referrals.
Get your reputation.
And that goes back to almost 4 inspections a year from our average customer, from our average agent, right? And so they're seeing that value that we're providing. And if you're just, where an inspection company fails is if we go in and we just do all these reports, throw it all at them, and we don't communicate any of this to them. And where I've done a good job as a business owner is being in the construction industry is I've educated our people on how these things are done, how they're built. I've connected all of our people with all of our contractors. So we have contractors that we can call. They're all in our reports. If we have an issue, I can be on the phone. I can FaceTime somebody. I was at an inspection on the river in Margaret's Walk last week, and I called my stucco guy. I was seeing a lot of stucco issues on this house. It's 6,000 square foot. And luckily he was in the area. He's like, hey man, I'll come over. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Like, oh, thank goodness. So like we have those wonderful connections. And if you're able to communicate things in a way that's not so scary, hey, you have this is how you fix it. You know what I mean? And if you don't do that, if you don't communicate, if you don't have those resources, yeah, all the other stuff that we do is crap. What good is it if we're not explaining those things? And I think that's where a lot of frustration will come from with agents, where they may have gotten burned with a previous inspector, or they may have gotten something that just went sideways because they weren't educated properly, right?
Yep.
And so that's what we're doing. We're going in there and we're basically just saying, okay, you've got mold. If it's Stachybotrys, which is black mold, or if it's Cladosporium, which is one of the most common molds that's in the world, you'll find that on almost every single inspection that we do. We will tell you how to get rid of it. We'll tell you what needs to be done to get this problem under control. Most issues with mold is humidity. Right. And so that's one thing that a lot of people don't think about here in Florida is if your humidity's high because you have a very cheap air conditioning unit or it's older or whatever, and you're not keeping that under check, this is going to continue to be a problem. So you need to get a newer, more efficient AC or like a whole house dehumidifier, or more efficient doors or windows. And so just educating them on that. Hey, get this, do this, and this should be under check, under control. But in the meantime, this is how you clean it. This is how you fix it. That's the mold thing, right? Mm-hmm. Knowing that you have a sewer line that's going underneath your driveway, or if they have plans to do some work here, or they want to plant a tree here, telling your customer, hey, don't put it here, don't do this here, because it can cause problems with this pipe later. We're not trying to be fortune tellers and saying that it's going to break in 6 months if you do this, but it's just educating them on like best practices.
Well, I think, you talked about the dollar, and they get the sticker shock because they've been told, $300 to $500 you can get a home inspection, but it's not. There's so many issues that have come up, and that person you were telling the story about, that first sewer inspection under the driveway, there was already some sort of sign, but no one knew what it was. And you found out that would have been, like you said, like $20,000 picking up the driveway. And now you look like you're the biggest hero. And now the agent looks so great because you were the one they recommended. Yep. And they are looking up to you, but they're looking up to you through the agent, as the agent referred me to this outstanding home inspector. They just saved me either a $20,000 negotiation or a $20,000 issue that I'm going to deal with later, whatever. And it's always going to be at the wrong time. You're going to have company over the house and all of a sudden the toilets start backing up, right? Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be the wrong time. But now you and it's doing the right thing all the time. I think it's that Marine Maxim's book. I got to give it. They were talking about this morning, and one of he graduated the year before me, but he's now a general. But this colonel was referring to David Odom and saying basically he's doing the right thing all the time. Yeah. And you're doing the right thing all the time. The agents need to understand. Yeah, now people do have budgets, so maybe you need to negotiate. But that home inspection, the appraisal's needed. There's no negotiation on that price. They're going to charge you whatever that going rate is in the area. Yep. But the home inspection you could choose is strategically choose the things based on the age. Maybe talking to you said, hey, their budget's not quite this much, but we need to get the most out of this home inspection. Because most of these people, from what I'm understanding, a lot of the agents are saying they want turnkey houses. So if there's issues with that house and you're not locating these things, that's not a turnkey house anymore when they find out a year later that they need to spend $10,000 on replacing the sewer line. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm very aware of people's budgets. It's tight out there. Mm-hmm. Homes are more expensive than ever right now, and interest rates are a little higher. But across the and I know I'm going to get hammered for this, but over the course of 100 years, we're probably about average where we're at right now in the sixes, right? You know that more than I do, but it's expensive to buy a house right now, and people are stretching their dollars to get into the house that they want, and I understand that, and I do know that people can't afford to do this, but for an additional $150 here or $200 to get this thing done to protect that $500,000 house, because that's about your starting price now for a decent house now in the area, $500,000. And are you going to want to fork out $800 with us total, or $400 and potentially miss out on $50,000 in damages over time? Just weigh your options. What's your ROI?
We know our fellow citizens are tapped credit wise. I want to say tapped. the credit is the highest it's ever been. So that means they don't have cash. Right. So when they get hit with a $10,000 or $20,000 sewer line, which you can't, when it starts to back up and cause problems, and then they're calling you out going, hey, what's wrong with the sewer line? Oh, it's blocked. It's not, well, we'll wait till next year. Mm-hmm. You got to do something right then and there. Yeah. How are you going to do it? Yeah. You're tapped out because your credit card, these are things that the people need to think about, like I said, and it's their reputation. Now, sometimes people will never know because you did that, they did the inspection, there was nothing there. Okay, great. But what if there was, and it could be catastrophic,
right? And
really set someone back.
Yeah.
100%.
So yeah, there's lots of things there. And then obviously whenever you're using us, you're saving other dollars down the road. Mm-hmm. So if you go with our company, we're not the cheapest and we're not the most expensive. We are in line. We were higher. We've adjusted our prices in 2022 and we are now right on par with some of the other bigger guys in town because we were a little higher. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a well-known thing. But you're going to save anywhere from $500 to $600 minimum with us because eventually somebody's going to call a pest control company and have them come over, right? And then we also have a deal with all of our preferred contractors that use us is that if you are a part of our system, because they're built into our report, so every time that there's like a roofing issue, electrical, HVAC, plumbing, whatever, they are all attached to the bottom of our reports, and so they will individually go to each. So if there's 8 deficiencies on a roof, there will be the roofers that'll be attached to those individual deficiencies, electrical, whatever. And if somebody wants to get a quote, they can go click, hey, get a quote here from our report, go to the contractors. Well, in order to be a part of our system, all of our contractors have to have a coupon code, kind of like Teal Deal for the Jaguars. So when they call, it's like, hey, use code GHI20. So not only are they saving with us, with our pest control company, $500-600, but there's tens of thousands of dollars in savings if like you just...
It's kind of like an affiliate link.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there's thousands of dollars of savings in after the fact money with our customers that not every other, actually, I don't know if any other inspection company is using what we are using and how we're using it. We're kind of interesting on that. I've been on a podcast on the actual software company talking about it, and they're kind of like, oh, that's interesting. We're doing things that are a little bit cutting edge, as a home inspector, but it's working, and our customers are seeing it, the agents are seeing it, and we're having a lot of success.
Well, like you say, you talked about value. You don't know what people see value in, and the reality is, like you said, you're making their connection, saying, here are other people, and because you used us, you use them, you're going to, if you need them, there's going to be a discount there. Yep. And then you're already giving them a discount from the pest control should they come over, which offsets the cost that they just spent on your home inspection to gain that business. It's one thing when I first started at Quicken Loans, eat your own dog food was Dan Gilbert's thing, because he has multiple different companies besides Quicken Loans, which is now Rocket. I mean, he's this whole thing is he wanted all those employees to use the services within. Well, for you want all your clients from the home inspection and use your pest control and then use the other people you network with, and eat your own dog food was his ism, is what they call it. I want to finish with the termite bond because I know when we bought our house, we had one, or there was one active, and then obviously I guess we assumed it. Type of thing. Tell us a little bit how and why it's important in Florida for the termite bond and to have one on your house.
Yeah, so in Kansas, the average amount of termites per acre is less than 1 termite colony per acre. Do you have any idea of how many termite colonies per acre on average are here in Northeast Florida? 16 to 18. That's a fact. So there's more than 16 to 18 termite colonies per acre in our area. And so we have a heavy presence of subterranean termites. It's just a well-known fact that we have in our area. If you've ever sold a piece of real estate in Jacksonville in the South Side market or wherever, if you've sold a decent number of homes, I'm sure you've come across a termite issue. So there's also another interesting thing that we do with the termites is if you have an inspection with us and we're finding termite issues, we're able to come in and do spot treatments, which not every pest control company will do, but at a very discounted rate for the realtors. We kind of cater to realtors on these spot treatment areas. So getting underneath the house to spray with Boracare treatments or any sort of Termidor or Centricon spot treatments to get that to closing, we can help out with that. With the termite bond, what we will do, this is not something that we've talked about, I think you might know about it, but any realtor who's listening to this, if you have a listing that does not have an active termite bond, we will install that system for free. And the way that we're able to do this is what we do is essentially we put a hold on the payment for 180 days. The seller will never see a bill. The realtor will never see a bill from us. So we'll go into the property and we'll install a legitimate termite bond. We'll do it exactly how we would do it for a normal paying customer. And at the end of the 120 or 180 days, if the house has not sold, Basically, we will go to the listing agent if they still have the listing, or we'll go to the seller and say, do you want to continue on with this termite bond? If they say, no, we don't want it anymore, we're not going to sell, or for whatever reason, we go back, we go pick those stations back up. If they say, yes, we want to continue with it, at that point, after the 100, I think it's 180 days that we have on it now, it used to be 120, it's 180 days, we will make the customer pay for it. So if the house doesn't sell in 6 months, you got to pay for it. But 9 out of 10 homes are selling within, 60 days or so. So then what we do, and the reason why we do it, is we will have the potential to gain that customer who's purchasing the home that we may not have ever had that potential to get. And remember how I was talking, it's about $300 to $500 to get that customer. So then we'll say, hey, it's just $99 to roll over that termite bond. And then after that, you're paying, we do monthly premiums on termite bonds, about $30 a month, and they can cancel at any time. So we're doing that to add more value, to the listing. Like, hey, it has an active termite bond with Centricon. And then after that, a potential buyer can just roll that over for $99. And it's not free, right? So it's $99. We have to have something, to put it in the ground for that. And then our hopes is that we'll also get them for pest control as well. And it's just another way to add value, right? Like if you're going to a listing agreement or a listing presentation and you're just kind of trying to do everything that you can to get that because they're interviewing 3, 4, 5 different people, one of the questions you can ask is, it's more work, right? Because you have to ask the question, remember to ask it, but hey, does the house have an active termite bond? It's, paid, I think it's item number 16, right? And you can check that box. Do you have an active termite bond? No? Okay, great. Well, now you do, and it's free. And here you go, and here's how we're going to do it. Right. So that's an interesting
So for our customers coming from out of state, up north who don't need termites are not an issue, or they're coming from Kansas, and they thought termites are not an issue. They are an issue here. And how does a termite bond work for those coming in and have no idea why do I need a termite bond?
Yep. So I'm going to go into that as soon as I talk about this. So even agents, I had a conversation with an agent last week. Oh, we don't need a termite bond here. The house is hardy. I was like, okay, so it's a wood frame home. So even a brick house. So 9 out of 10 houses that you have brick around it are brick veneer. It's a wood frame home. You have brick that's on the outside. A stucco house. I get those questions. It's stucco. I don't need it. It's a stucco. It's not wood siding. Well, no, they go after the framing, how the house was built. We have videos
they find
on
the
Instagram
wood.
and even block homes, because guess what? They come through the block voids. They start eating furred strips and they get inside the house. Watch my Instagram video on the block house in St. Augustine from last summer. Gone. $25,000 in damage on this house on a 100% block home. They got on the inside. They were swarming. She didn't see it until she vacuumed into her baseboard and boom, exposed it, and they all came out. And it was because she was digging a pool, never had a termite bond, left a pool hole there, and they disturbed a colony somewhere, and boom, boom, boom.
So the colony started to move and found the house.
Block house, 100%. But they got in through a block void, found the furred strips, and started going into all the trim work on the inside of the house and just did some severe damage. So why do you need a termite bond? So you will never, ever, 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 ever be covered for termite damage under your insurance policy. So if you go purchase a home and that home falls to the ground after you have termite damage, it's considered to be a part of home maintenance. So it's extremely important to know that you will never be covered for it. And that's a shock for a lot of people, because we get calls in the pest control office. We're like, hey, we called our insurance to see if we get this covered, but they don't cover termite damage. We need to start up a termite bond. Well, it's an education time. You're not ever covered for it because it's home maintenance. So it's extremely important to know that you can get a termite bond started up with our company after you have a home inspection, depending on, because it's all based off of the linear footage, right? A person who has a 1-story home that's 2,500 square feet is probably going to pay more than someone who has a 3-story home that's 3,000 square feet, because it's all based off of the footprint. That's how we're charged as a business. But from $100 to $300 on the startup for a termite bond to protect that $1 million property is worth every last penny. And termites are just an active thing here, and you'll never be covered for that damage under your insurance policy. So we are your insurance policy as a pest control company, and it started up for that, and then approximately $300 to $400 a year to maintain that. It's worth every penny. And the way that these things work is, termites are nothing but random foragers. All they're doing is, and they're heavy down here because we have a frost. It never freezes, so they're active year round. So termites, they're crawling around, they're looking for food sources. There's nothing in the world, if you ever have a technician or a person that tells you that, hey, you're going to attract termites to your house by putting baits on the side of your house, they don't know what they're talking about. Termites are looking around, and what they'll do is they'll look for decaying wood, any sort of water source, because they need water to survive. So if you've ever seen a subterranean termite, you've seen the mud tubes that are going inside of a house, or that it looks very dirty. They need these mud tubes to survive. It has a moisture content in there, and without moisture, they can't survive. If there's no dead trees, if there's no wet areas, you're probably pretty good for the most part. But what these stations do is, as they're randomly foraging, they'll go into these stations and they'll find them. Statistically speaking, they're the most effective product on the market for termites. And it's the only product on a truck that does not carry an SDS label. You can actually eat the product yourself. It wouldn't do anything. It's 99.5% cellulose, so just wood shavings, and then 0.5% of this product called novaflumaron. And what novaflumaron is like birth control. It's an IGR of sorts. The termites will find it, and just like rats and every other critter in the world, once they find a food source, they send off pheromones. And they're like, hey, termites found food. And so these termites
Everybody else comes.
Everybody else comes, and they take this bait, and I'm using this so people can see it on the video. They'll come up here to the station, they'll eat it, and they take it back to the colony. And then what they do is these workers, they will regurgitate it, they'll throw it up, and then the queen eats the food. Well, when she's eating this bait, she can no longer reproduce, and then it takes about 30 days for that particular colony to die off. And the way that a old school traditional termite treatment is, they used to drill into your concrete, you would have patched holes everywhere, is basically you just have a liquid barrier, and depending on what you use, it's either deterrent or non-deterrent, so they know it's there or it's not there, and they would walk over the liquid and they would just die. Centricon, what we use is called the colony elimination system. It's because it actually gets rid of the colony itself, and it takes approximately, depending on the size of the colony or the type of termite, 30 days, and then they're gone. But what will keep them around is gutters with no downspouts going away from the house, right? You have a wet area on the side of a house. Condensate drain lines from your air conditioning. If you're just dripping there constantly on the side of the house and you're right next to some plants and it's kind of making mulch very soft and easy to eat, that'll keep them around, right? It's not, but there's nothing that you can go on the ground like you're fishing for, you can't put a live shrimp in the ground and expect them to come. They're just randomly finding these things.
Right.
And if you can eliminate those water sources from around your house, you can help to protect yourself from termites a little easier. Did I answer that enough?
Yeah, well, and then I want to go back and just kind of tail back to that one where the lady didn't have the termite bond and had the, tens of thousands of dollars in damage from the insurance itself, because obviously you're not the insurance company. There's an insurance company that's, you're taking your expertise and you're putting those things in. Are they limited in how much they cover? Obviously, I assume the claim has to be approved. There's going to be an adjuster come out and look at what's the typical bond.
So
there must be some
from
dollar.
us?
I'm talking about from a dollar standpoint, like what's covered. If that had all been bonded, and then they went in there and they had actually gotten into the house after you did your pre-inspection, so the house is clear of termites, we're good. Go ahead and put the Centricon system in. We're great. And all of a sudden, 2 years later, she's had the bond, kept it up, and then we found $25,000 worth of damage inside the house from termites. Are they restricted from a dollar amount? What's the background of the policy, I guess?
So state of Florida requires that there's two options on your termite contract, and I'm sure you've heard of this or know about it, but it's either retreat or a repair and retreat contract. Not only does it have to be on page 1 on a termite contract, it also has to be in bold, and it also has to be a certain size. So you can't hide it. You can't put it here. It has to be a certain part of the paragraph. It's very important that it's there, and it was put there by attorneys. So our contracts were written by attorneys, and there's a particular reason why. So most people will go with a retreat-only service. If you go call, I'm just going to pick on them just because they're the big guys. If you go call Turner Pest Control right now and you have a 2,000 square foot house and you tell them that you want a repair and retreat bond or a repair and retreat policy, for a 2,000 square foot home right now, you're going to pay, it's typically about $9 per linear foot. Let's call it $250. The startup on that's going to be about $3,000 to $4,000. And then your monthly service on a repair and retreat contract is going to be about $100 to $150 just for the termite. Whereas if you went with a retreat only, meaning that if you get termites into your house, they'll retreat and they'll kill those termites, and that's it. Now, if you have a repair and retreat contract, no, there's not a policy limit on there. It's $1 million. That's what we all carry.
Well, you're paying quite a bit.
But you're paying quite a bit. So, there's this. This is another podcast, but there's certain ways that the bigger companies will do things that we as a smaller company, we just won't do. So we're paying attention to them a little bit more. As a smaller company, we have a better way to control what we're putting out and what we're doing just because of the size of our company. But yeah, there's a repair and retreat or a retreat only contract, and just choose wisely, right? Yeah. You're either going to pay a couple $100 up here and then, $30, $40, $50 here, or you're going to pay thousands of dollars here and then hundreds of dollars here. Weigh your options, right? Yeah. And if we are truly doing our job as a pest control company and we're servicing your home and we're checking those stations and we're doing our due diligence, the odds of termites getting so out of control, like a situation like that, with having an active pest control company is fairly slim, right? If you have a large Formosan termite colony that just goes unchecked for several months, yeah, it can eat up a whole back room of your home.
Right.
But if we're going there actively, every few months for pest control, and we're looking at
Well, I imagine they have Centricon probably has the statistics, on that situation, that if a good pre-inspection's done, no termites, they put the system in. I mean, what's the national statistics of them penetrating past that system?
It's over 90% protection that they have. So this is also another interesting Jeopardy fact. The White House, the Statue of Liberty, and the Alamo, and all government buildings are protected purely by Centricon only. I actually took a picture of it. I saw the Alamo last year. I went to a place in San Antonio. And I was like, let's go see Alamo. And I walked by and I forgot that was there. I was like, oh shit, there's Centricon here. And just took a picture. I'm like, they weren't lying. It's here. So if the government can trust them, I can't really trust them, but they trust it on their buildings.
Right.
And so we trusted on our customer homes and my own personal home as well. And we had active termites, not in the house, but we had them on our baits last summer. It was kind of funny was we'll get a lot of calls because termites will swarm, and subterranean termites will swarm. Depends on the year. We were having early swarmers in the beginning part of February, all the way until late October, sometimes early November. So they'll swarm almost 12 months out of the year here because it's such a temperate climate. Well, I was redoing all the landscaping in my front yard last summer, and I guess I hit a colony. And when I dug up part of it was like an old ligustrum tree that was there, and it was like a mini backhoe that I was like, whatever. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's termites are swarming. And I took a video, and I'm like taking pictures, and I'm like, this is so cool. There's termites here. And so I just know as an operator that what it takes to get rid of them, and just because you have termites that are swarming doesn't necessarily mean you have an infestation, but it means that they're there and you need to look into it a little further.
Get it treated.
What happens is basically you're 16 to 18 colonies per acre, and they're just there, right? And they're just trying to find stuff, and you'll disturb one. They could be 10 feet down, they could be 100 feet down. I mean, we don't know where they're at. You just kind of hit one. But if you're doing your inspections, if you have your coverage on your house and you know what to look for, and you're listening to your pest control company and your inspector saying, hey, you've got a low spot here that's holding water, your air conditioning unit's dripping too close to the side of the house, your gutter is going right here. Everything in the inspection world and the pest control world starts and ends with water. Think about it as like an inspection report, all the things that like kind of go bad that cause red flags: roof leaks, mold, water, foundation issues. Typically water is causing that. Heavy water, not having gutters, like drainage issues.
Well, from the lending world, and then real estate agents have this fear of the VA loan. They are looking just for that. And your home inspector's already looking for that for you.
Yeah.
And we always have this, miscommunication. Oh, the VA, they're going to come out with a different appraiser. No, they're looking for water damage because just of the reasons you're talking about.
Yeah.
What you're doing already anyway as a home inspector are pointing out areas of water, because those are the mold, obviously the termites, all those things that we just talked about.
Yeah, any sort of conducive condition is what we're looking for as an inspector and as a pest control company. And that's something that's interesting. So we actually have other home inspectors who work for us in the area, and they actually do their termite inspections as an employee of our company. So we have other competitors out there who are working for us as other...
To be endorsed on the...
To do that, yeah. So as a home inspector, you cannot. It's just based off the volume of stuff that we do. We do a lot, but we were actually investigated by the state 3 years ago, and you know why? And a lot of inspectors don't know this. If you are doing a home inspection and you put the word termite in a home inspection report, if someone out there is angry enough because you killed a deal and they didn't go by the house, or you did a repair request because the home inspector said that you had termites in your house, guess what? You pick up the phone and you call the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, and you tell them that this home inspector is practicing pest control without a license. Guess what? FDAX is coming to your door. Ask me how I know. We had a guy who put in that there was active termites swarming in this house, and you could see it. They were eating up the house. It was a piece of junk in Green Cove. Well, we always knew not to put termites in there. We would always say, hey, there appears to be. Oh, okay. And then this is why we do WDOs on every single one of our home inspection reports. There's a reason why we include WDOs. It's because in the event that we come across termites or any sort of issue, we don't have that problem where we're like, we can't say it, but we can because we just always have a WDO. So what happened here was the termite said, appears to be subterranean termites. What happens is said, hey, there appears to be active termites in the property. Further evaluation by a pest control company is advised. Well, the listing agent, I guess, was smart enough and said, send me over the WDO report that shows that you had termites from the pest control company. And they said, well, we just had the inspection report. So she had a friend who, because all of this is public record, and her friend was working for another larger company, and this other larger company took our home inspection report, sent it to the state, and said, hey, this home inspection company is practicing pest control without a license. And this was like a month after we started our pest control company, like right after. And so I'm picking up the phone, calling all the inspectors I know, and I'm like, it's not just because we started this company that you got to do this, but here's what's going on. And so, yeah, you can get in trouble if you're going through an inspection report and you're talking about termites without a pest control license, because as a home inspector, you're not trained
for pest.
You have no idea what you're talking about because you haven't had the proper training. So you have to have a WDO report. So just another one of those things that.
But every house should have a WD. I mean, you guys just said you're part of your just part of your thing.
Just part of our thing now. Yeah, we did that. I don't even think it was 2 weeks after that where I said, okay, now that we have a pest control company, every single inspection is going to include a WDO report. It's just part of it now.
Makes total sense.
Yeah. Yep.
Anything you want to add? We have some good stuff here for sure. I hope people are listening because whether they sit at a lunch and learn that you're doing and getting educated, or they could sit here and listen to this hour and a half right here and get a lot of good stuff for sure.
If you're out there and you want to get more educated on what it is that a home inspector is doing, or if you want to just learn about inspections more, about our company, we would love to do lunch and learns. We provide good food. I promise we bring the good stuff, and we don't keep it boring. We'll typically make a little fun and have fun with the agents. But yeah, if you're looking to learn more about us as a company and who we are and what we can provide, we'd love to speak with you.
10-4. And to go back to the real estate agent ordering it or the customer, have you tried to sway the real estate agent from making the order, or try to get the customer more involved because they might order the extra services? Because to me, I'd be like, yeah, kind of like a loan. Hey, yeah, real estate agent, here's my application link. Okay, send it to your customer. You want me to call them? I'll take it manually. They can just click the link, whatever they feel probably to do. How are you figuring out how to get more customers ordering? Because obviously
we pick up the phone. Yep. So they order the inspection. We call the customer. Hey, are you understanding what services that you have and what are the services that we provide that you don't have? And if they say, yep, we just want this, it's all good to go, no problem. We also have 2 automations that go out. So just 2 emails, and it'll go out to the customer and say, hey, here's your final chance. Here's a coupon code if you want to try this out, and it's $25 off for this. Let us know if you want to add this onto your inspection. And then, we're just saying, hey, here you go. So we'll call them just to make sure they understand what they're getting. And then if they say,
yep. Put that in video.
The what?
I think you got to put that in video.
Oh, it is.
Oh, you said
there's embedded links.
Oh, okay, all right. The email goes out with an embedded link with a video. Yes, because they'll watch the video more than they'll read anyway.
Yeah, it's super short. It's honestly like 1.5, 2 sentences long. It's a very short read because of your attention span. Mine is too. If I get something like, that's how I am. So it's very short, and the links are like, click here to see what this is.
Yeah,
and everything has a link in it, and it's talking. So
well, another great podcast. Tons of information in there. We're gonna get a lot of short stuff out of there too. We'll break that down for those who like the short little bites. But appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Thanks, Austin.
Awesome.
All right.